The room is silent, but the tension could be carved with a blade. 5 women sit rigid around a polished table, eyes fixed on contracts worth millions. Across from them, lawyers and business magnates shuffle papers, their faces a mask of calm. But for the Fendi sisters, this is not business as usual. This is the dividing line between past and future. Tonight, decades of ambition, loyalty, and bitter rivalry will converge. For nearly a century, the Fendi name has meant family above all. Now, a single signature could transform it into just another asset on a multinational balance sheet. Carla clears her throat first. She has always been the strategist, the public face. Her hand hovers over the pen, but she hesitates. Anna looks down, her jaw clenched. Paola, Franca, and Alda exchange glances, expressions somewhere between resolve and regret. The sisters have argued before, but nothing like this. They remember growing up inside the walls of their parents' workshop. The smell of tanned leather, the hum of sewing machines, the soft laughter echoing through the back room. Their mother Adele's hands, nimble and sure, shaping something beautiful from raw materials. Their father Eduardo's voice, gentle but firm, reminding them that every stitch carried the family's reputation. Those memories seem distant tonight. For years, they've fought to protect what their parents built. They've fought the market, the fashions, and sometimes even each other. But this, selling a majority stake to outsiders, feels like surrender. Still, the world outside these walls has changed. The pressures of global expansion, the relentless pursuit of growth, and the specter of competitors have made it impossible to stand still. Offers from luxury conglomerates have grown impossible to ignore. The numbers on the page are staggering, the risks just as great. Carla looks at her sisters. The decision is not just about money. It's about legacy. It's about loyalty. It's about whether the Fendi name remains an extension of their family or becomes something else entirely. Sylvia, Anna's daughter, sits quietly in the corner. She is the next generation, the future, watching as history pivots on a single choice. The lawyers break the silence. Time is running out. The pen scratches against the paper. One after another, the signatures appear. The contracts are signed. In this moment, the Fendi family empire is no longer entirely theirs. What brought them to this moment? The answer lies half a century earlier, in a city alive with promise. Rome in 1925 was a world of contrasts. Ancient ruins stood beside bustling cafes. The city buzzed with ambition and reinvention. On a quiet street, Adele Casagrande and her husband Eduardo Fendi opened the doors of a tiny leather and fur shop. They had little more than hope and skill, but they had each other. Adele was a force of nature. She could transform a scrap of hide into a work of art. Her standards were exacting, her design instincts ahead of her time. Eduardo handled the business, forging relationships with clients and craftsmen alike. The shop quickly earned a reputation for quality. Customers returned, not just for the goods, but for the feeling of being part of something special. The Fendis didn't just sell accessories. They offered an experience, luxury, yes, but also warmth and trust. In the evenings, Adele and Eduardo's 5 daughters played under the work tables. Their laughter filled the little shop. The business grew, slowly but surely, weathering the economic storms of the 1930s and the uncertainties of war. When Eduardo died, Adele was left to guide the family through uncharted territory. The sisters were still young, but the workshop was their home. Every lesson Adele taught them about craft, about responsibility, about loyalty took root. By the late 1940s, the 5 daughters were ready to carry the brand forward. Paola, Anna, Franca, Carla, and Alda each brought her own personality, her own strengths. Paola, the eldest, was disciplined and detail-oriented. Anna, passionate about design, pushed for innovation. Franca had a keen eye for style and trend. Carla, the diplomat, managed public relations. Alda, the youngest, balanced the family dynamic with quiet resolve. They faced skepticism, even ridicule. 5 women running a luxury business in conservative post-war Italy was unheard of, but together they were unstoppable. They modernized the shop, expanded the product line, and insisted on nothing less than excellence. In the 1950s and 60s, the sisters sensed that the world was changing. The rigid codes of fashion were breaking down. Women wanted more than tradition, they wanted excitement. The Fendi sisters responded with boldness. They experimented with new techniques, new materials, new ideas. Their reputation grew. The little shop became a destination. Aristocrats and movie stars browsed the displays. Still, the sisters knew that to secure their place among the world's elite, they needed something more. In 1965, they made a decision that would alter the course of fashion history. They hired a young German designer whose audacity matched their own, Karl Lagerfeld. With him, the Fendi name would become a global phenomenon, but that too was still to come. For now, the sisters worked late into the night, their hands guiding the needles, their eyes scanning every seam. Much more than a business, Fendi was a family. Every disagreement was personal, every triumph shared. But as the business grew, so did the stakes. Decisions that once felt easy became battles. The world was evolving, and so were they. Sometimes unity came easily. Other times, it tore at the bonds that held them together. Decades later, all those choices, every risk, every victory, every unresolved argument would culminate in that silent, high-stakes boardroom, the night when signatures would change everything. The Fendi sisters would become legends, but legends are made not just by what they create, but by what they sacrifice. Not every dynasty is lost in a single moment. Sometimes it slips away with the sound of a pen on paper. Next, the story returns to the beginning, when Fendi was no empire at all. Only a dream, a storefront, and a family determined to survive. Chapter 2: Adele's Dream, the birth of Fendi. Rome, 1925. The city thrums with life, but the noise fades on a quiet street near Via del Plebiscito. There, in a modest storefront, Adele Casagrande dusts the last specks from the window. Her fingertips trace the glass, leaving nothing but clarity. She is 24, meticulous and stubbornly hopeful. Next to her, Edoardo Fendi checks the locks. He does not smile easily, but with Adele he tries. This is not the Rome of emperors and popes, not anymore. The city is rebuilding itself, modern, restless, hungry for beauty. But for Adele and Edoardo, everything shrinks to the worn counter of their shop. Leather, fur, and dreams line the shelves. They call it Fendi. At first, no one cares much about the name. For the young couple, it stands for the promise they have made each other. Quality without compromise, work so precise that nothing slips through unnoticed. The first months are a test of endurance. Customers trickle in, ask for repairs, scoff at the prices. Adele refuses to cut corners. If a wallet takes 3 hours to stitch, she spends 5. Edoardo manages suppliers, haggling for every lira, refusing to be cheated. Some weeks, they barely break even. At night, the ledger balances on a knife's edge. Still, Adele pushes forward. Her father was a carpenter. He believed beauty was patience and persistence. Adele believes it too, so does Edoardo, though he shows it differently. He works quietly, his hands always moving. They rarely argue in front of customers, but behind the heavy curtain, voices rise and fall. Should they take on more debt? Should they hire an apprentice? Neither will give in without a fight. The shop begins to change slowly. That first winter brings a wealthy widow in need of repairs for a treasured handbag. Adele repairs it by hand, restoring every detail with devotion. The widow returns, and then her friends follow. Word spreads. There is a new shop in Rome where nothing is rushed, where every request is treated as sacred. By the early 1930s, the city is tense. Politics tighten their grip, and uncertainty hangs overhead. But in that small shop, Adele and Eduardo build a sanctuary from chaos. Their standards are relentless. Leather is inspected for flaws with almost religious scrutiny. Fur is brushed until it shines like new. Products are stamped only when deemed perfect. The couple sacrifices much. They skip holidays, count every coin, and sometimes go home with empty stomachs. But in the privacy of their apartment, they allow themselves moments of pride. They are still young, but Fendi has survived its first years. Many other shops have not. Their values become their brand. Dignity in every transaction, patience in every stitch. To Adele, creating something beautiful is an act of defiance. In a world that threatens to unravel daily, she insists on order and care. When the couple welcomes their first daughter, Paula, the shop is already changing. Now there is a cradle in the back room. Eduardo rocks the baby while Adele greets customers. They learn to juggle roles, parent, artisan, merchant, without ever dropping what matters most. As the years pass, the Fendi family grows. 4 more daughters are born: Anna, Franca, Carla, and Alda. There are never enough hours in the day. Still, Adele and Eduardo find room for simple joys. A cup of espresso before dawn. The subtle pride when customers recognize their name. The world outside their shop grows darker. The 1930s bring political uncertainty and economic hardship. Yet, the Fendi name slowly gains respect. Customers return not just for goods, but for trust. In times of fear and suspicion, that trust is rare. Eduardo's strengths become clearer as the business expands. He manages a growing network of suppliers, resists the pressure to cut costs, and protects the family's reputation fiercely. Adele, meanwhile, is the creative force. She sketches new designs on scraps of paper, tests new techniques, and trains every apprentice herself. Their partnership is not always peaceful, but it is unbreakable. By the late 1940s, the Fendi shop is no longer just a shop. It is a gathering place for regulars, a refuge from the city's uncertainties. Parents leave their children's shoes for repair. Tourists marvel at the displays. Adele and Eduardo's values have become a way of life. And then Eduardo falls ill. The diagnosis is sudden, the prognosis grim. Adele tries to hide her fear, but the uncertainty seeps into every day. The daughters, now growing into young women, sense the change. They help more in the shop, learning their parents' methods by heart. Eduardo's final months are spent at work, as much as his body will allow. He insists on teaching his daughters how to judge the grain of leather, how to negotiate with suppliers, how to greet every customer as a guest. He does not speak of legacy. Instead, he shows it, one lesson, one story, one silent gesture at a time. When Eduardo dies, the loss is felt in every corner of the shop. Adele is devastated, but she does not allow herself to falter. She gathers her daughters, now 5 strong, and shows them the books. She lays out the tools. She hands them pieces of unfinished work. The message is clear. Fendi must not become a memory. It must evolve, survive, and maybe, one day even thrive. The sisters, each different in temperament and skill, step forward. The city is still uncertain. The world still recovering from war, but Fendi, stubborn as ever, endures. From this point, the story no longer belongs only to Adele and Eduardo. It becomes the story of 5 sisters, 5 ambitions, 5 pairs of hands, 5 visions for the future. Their journey will not be easy. The values of patience and perfection have carried them this far, but the world is about to accelerate. The Fendi sisters have inherited a dream built on sacrifice and pride. But how long can traditions survive in a world obsessed with the new? And what happens when five sisters do not always want the same thing? The answers would shape not only a family, but an empire. The shop on that quiet Roman street is no longer just a shop. It is the beginning of something vast, and as history will show, something fiercely contested. Chapter 3: Five Sisters, One Vision. Rome, 1946. The streets are noisy again. Newspapers shout headlines of recovery and hope. In the Fendi shop, another revolution is quietly beginning. Adele stands in the background, but the spotlight now falls on her five daughters: Paola, Anna, Franca, Carla, and Alda, names destined to appear together in magazine spreads and boardroom documents. Yet in this moment, they are simply sisters, united by duty, divided by ambition. Each sister has a style as distinct as her handwriting. Paola, the eldest, always poised, radiates gravitas. She is measured, reserved, and detail-obsessed. Logistics and supply chains become her province. She studies every shipment of leather, debates every stitch. Nothing leaves the workshop without her approval. Anna, second-born, is a force of nature. She has Adele's fire. Relentless in energy, she is the one who greets customers by name and remembers their children's birthdays. Anna is the public face, quick with a smile, quick to negotiate, never afraid to push for more. Franca is the dreamer, the diplomat. She has an eye for color, for harmony. Design decisions often pass through her gentle persuasion. When disagreements turn heated, Franca is the bridge, never imposing, always inviting collaboration. Carla, the fourth, is ambition in motion. She is strategic, future-focused, attuned to trends before others sense them. Carla is the architect of Fendi's expansion. She sees Paris as a possibility, not a threat. Her instinct is to build, to diversify, to be bold. Alda, the youngest, brings a quiet rigor. Numbers are her language. She studies the accounts after hours, models new pricing, and spots risks others overlook. She is methodical, patient, and decisive in crisis. Five women raised above a shop floor now sit around the same table. The world expects them to falter. Italy, after all, is still a man's world, yet the sisters are undeterred. Their father's absence looms large, but the foundation he built is strong. They inherit not just a brand, but a set of values: craftsmanship, elegance, resilience. Now they must add something their parents never needed: innovation. The sisters meet late into the night. Ideas bounce from one to the next, arguments flaring, laughter mixing with frustration. The question is always the same: how does Fendi become more than a well-kept Roman secret? The answer, they decide, lies in new products, new techniques, and new risks. It is the 1950s. Rome is changing, and so are its women. The sisters design handbags that are lighter, more modern, easier to carry through crowded streets. They introduce bold linings and hidden pockets. Each detail is debated into existence. The sisters challenge the very idea of what leather goods can be. No longer just tradition, they want personality, utility, and surprise. Fur too is reimagined. Once heavy and rigid, furs at Fendi become supple, almost weightless. They experiment with colors and textures: dyed minks, shaved furs, reversible pieces. The goal is clear: surprise the customer, never bore her. It is a risk, and not everyone approves. In Rome, fur is sacred and change provokes whispers. But the Fendi sisters persist. Mistakes are made, lessons are learned. Slowly, the city's tastemakers begin to notice. Each sister finds her rhythm. Paola ensures quality never slips. Anna charms buyers and critics alike. Franca molds the creative process, smoothing egos and aligning visions. Carla courts new retailers abroad, setting her sights on Paris, London, and New York. Alda guards the bottom line, making sure expansion never outpaces stability. Yet beneath the surface, tension simmers. Five strong minds rarely agree for long. Disputes over fabric choices escalate into shouting matches. Marketing budgets become battlefields. Some sisters dream of global fame. Others worry about losing the soul of the brand. Occasionally, one storms out of a meeting, vowing never to return. But the next morning, she is back, because family, for the Fendi sisters, is an unbreakable bond. The outside world is startled by their unity. In a business dominated by men, five sisters hold the reins unapologetically. They do not hide their arguments or their ambition. They pose together for photos, always side by side. Fashion reporters dub them the five fingers of Fendi, each different, none holding the pen alone. By the mid-1960s, the results are unmistakable. Fendi's name grows, first in Rome, then far beyond. Their creations appear in glossy magazines. Movie stars request custom pieces. The sisters travel to Paris, quietly studying the competition. They return to Rome with new ideas, blending Italian tradition with international flair. It is Carla who first advocates bringing in outside talent. She argues that the sisters know leather and fur, but the world is changing. They need fresh eyes, someone who can help Fendi stand out in a crowded field. The others are hesitant, fearing loss of control. The debate drags on for months. In the end, Carla's vision prevails. Soon, a young German designer will walk through the doors and change everything Fendi knows about fashion. But that is a story for another time. For now, the Fendi sisters have achieved what few thought possible. They have transformed a small Roman workshop into a modern atelier. They have survived loss, risked reinvention, and held together through conflict. Their secret is not perfect harmony. It is their willingness to challenge, to disagree, and then to unite against every obstacle. They are no longer just daughters of Adele. They are the architects of an empire in the making. With every stitch, every debate, every late-night compromise, the legend of Fendi grows. But as their fame rises, so do expectations. The sisters' dynamic, a source of strength, will soon face its fiercest test yet. Family is powerful, but ambition, even shared, can be unpredictable. For the Fendi sisters, the next challenge will not come from the outside world. It will come from within. How do five hands steer one empire when the road ahead splits in more than one direction? The answer will write the next chapter of the Fendi story. Chapter 4: The Lagerfeld Revolution. Rome, 1965. The city is restless, humming with the invention of a new era. On the Via Borgognona, the air inside Fendi's atelier is tense. Five sisters gather around a narrow table. They are about to gamble everything they have built on one astonishing decision. They wait for a designer from Germany. Karl Lagerfeld is 20-something, already whispered about for his work at Claret. He is unfamiliar, foreign, and to some in Rome, an outsider. The sisters hesitate, but not out of fear. Their strength has always been their willingness to evolve. He arrives late in the afternoon, black sunglasses gleaming, sketches under his arm. He greets each sister, Paula, Anna, Franca, Carla, Alda, with cool confidence and a restless energy that fills the room. They watch him as he takes in their world, the ordered chaos, the smell of leather, the hush before creation. For a moment, Rome and Hamburg seem impossibly far apart. Lagerfeld listens more than he talks. He asks questions about everything: the city, the clients, the mothers who buy Fendi fur for their daughters. He wants to know what women want, not just what they will wear. His first suggestions are radical. He proposes shorter hems, lighter pelts, new silhouettes that seem to defy the laws of fur. The sisters are shocked. Fur to them is tradition, heavy, dignified, even regal. Lagerfeld sketches fur coats that move, that laugh, that flirt. He talks about fur as fashion, not armor. The atelier is divided. Paula worries that tradition will be lost. Anna is curious but skeptical. Carla, eager for change, sees potential. Franca and Alda wait, weighing every word, every line on Lagerfeld's pages. Then Lagerfeld does something unexpected. He asks for their old inventory, their cast-offs, the pelts no one wants. He spends days experimenting, slashing, piecing, and reworking discarded furs. He turns what was heavy into something light as silk. He makes mink reversible, fox playful, sable almost translucent. The sisters watch as he dares to disrespect the old rules, and in doing so, finds something shockingly new. He sketches a logo, two blocky back-to-back Fs. It stands for Fun Furs. The sisters had never considered their legacy in those terms, but suddenly, Fendi is not only serious. It is bold, witty, unabashedly modern. Rome's old guard is scandalized. The Paris press is intrigued. When the first Lagerfeld collection debuts, the reaction is electric. Models strut, spin, and laugh, draped in fur that catches the light and seems almost to breathe. Fendi is no longer just for the Roman matron. Now it is for the woman who moves through cities, who dances, who breaks the rules. Lagerfeld's vision is relentless. Each season brings new experiments: shaved fur, dyed pelts, geometric patchworks, bold colors. The sisters are sometimes terrified, but they stand with him. They argue over details, but never the direction. Lagerfeld is not just a designer. He becomes family, a sixth voice, foreign but essential. The atelier is transformed. Seamstresses who once worked in silence now debate colors and textures. The sisters' mother, Adele, had taught them to respect the material. Lagerfeld teaches them to love risk. His energy is manic. He demands more from everyone: long hours, sharper details, daring ideas. Some staff fear him. Others are drawn to his vision. In private, the sisters debate. Are they moving too fast? Is Fendi still theirs, or is it becoming something else? But each time they see a woman in a Lagerfeld coat, laughing in the street, they know they have chosen right. Fendi's reputation soars beyond Rome. Buyers from Paris and New York line up for appointments. Vogue and Harper's Bazaar praise the house's boldness. The double F logo appears everywhere, on bags, belts, scarves. For the first time, Fendi is not just a name. It is a statement, a promise of something new. Lagerfeld's presence divides the sisters in small ways. Some feel overshadowed, others are liberated. But in public, they are united, always five, always unbreakable. The Roman elite, slow to accept change, eventually come around. Fendi is the talk of parties, the envy of rivals. Some accuse the sisters of abandoning their roots. They know better. They have simply grown. Lagerfeld pushes harder. He introduces ready-to-wear, reimagines accessories, and insists on shows that feel more like theater than tradition. The sisters learn to navigate his moods, his demands. They fight with him, joke with him, and sometimes defy him. But each victory brings them closer. The atelier, once a quiet workshop, now buzzes like a newsroom. Every season feels like a new bet. Lagerfeld's revolution is not gentle. It is loud, dazzling, impossible to ignore. Some in the industry see Fendi as reckless, others see genius. The truth is more complicated. The five sisters have not simply handed over their legacy. They have chosen a partner who challenges them at every turn. Fendi's transformation is not without pain. Some traditions are lost. The old world, with its quiet dignity, makes way for something brash and modern. Still, the sisters never lose sight of what matters: quality, family, the joy of creation. Lagerfeld, for all his bravado, respects their history. He learns from them and in turn teaches them to dream bigger. As the decade ends, Fendi stands at the center of the fashion world. The sisters are no longer just guardians of the past. They are pioneers, risk-takers, collaborators in the art of reinvention. Outside Rome, Fendi becomes shorthand for luxury with attitude. The double F logo is seen on runways, in films, and on the arms of celebrities. Yet inside the family, questions remain. How long can this partnership last? Will the sisters continue to share one vision, or will ambition pull them apart? What began as a risky experiment has become a movement. Fendi, once defined by quiet tradition, is now a battle cry for innovation. But every revolution has its cost, and every partnership, no matter how powerful, must weather its own storms. In the years to come, Fendi will face challenges that no one in that bustling Roman atelier could have predicted. Some would call it fate, others simply the price of daring to change. But for now, the sisters and their unlikely ally have done the unthinkable. They have rewritten the rules of Italian luxury. The city watches as Fendi becomes the future, one stitch, one risk, one revolution at a time. And somewhere in the heart of Rome, five sisters wonder if the greatest transformation is still ahead. Chapter 5: Karl Fendi, the reluctant leader. In every family empire, someone has to step forward. In the dazzling whirlwind of Fendi, it is Karla who first feels the weight of that responsibility. From the outside, she appears poised, always graceful, her words measured for the cameras and the boardrooms alike. But behind every public smile, Karla carries doubts that no one sees. She was not the eldest, nor the most rebellious, but Karla possessed a quiet ambition, sharpened by years watching her mother and sisters navigate the demands of creation and commerce. When the world begins to take notice of Fendi, it is Karla who becomes the voice and the shield. She speaks for the brand at international events, welcomes press, and negotiates with buyers. Her fluency in English and her knack for reading a room make her indispensable as Fendi steps onto the global stage. For a long time, Karla resists the label of leader. In her mind, leadership is a collective act, a chorus, not a solo. The sisters make every decision together, their votes and voices carrying equal weight. Yet every time a microphone is thrust forward or a foreign partner arrives, eyes turn to Karla. She learns to translate not just language, but emotion. To explain the Fendi spirit to audiences who have never touched Roman leather or understood the family's stubborn pride. With every accolade and headline, the stakes climb higher. Fendi is no longer just a Roman secret. Now, rivals in Milan and Paris are watching. Journalists dissect every move. Investors begin to circle, attracted by the brand's blend of heritage and modernity. And in this growing storm, Karla's role becomes even more critical. She feels the pressure most at night, when the atelier is silent and the city's lights flicker on the Tiber River. Karla replays her decisions, worries over each word spoken on behalf of her family. Did she protect the legacy? Did she push the brand far enough or too far? These questions echo through the marble halls of her childhood, lingering in the spaces where her father once stood. Among the sisters, Karla's authority is never declared, but always sensed. Paola is the technician, Anna the artist, Franca the strategist, Alda the diplomat. But Karla is the one the world calls Fendi. She becomes the bridge between past and future, between family privacy and public spectacle. Some days, she wonders if the cost of that bridge is too high. Global expansion brings new challenges. Suddenly, Karla is dealing with buyers in New York, fashion editors in London, celebrities in Los Angeles. With each overseas venture, she feels the expectations grow heavier. At home, her sisters occasionally resent the attention Karla receives. She knows this. She tries to compensate, giving credit in interviews and pushing the collective story. Still, headlines are written in singles, not plural. There are moments when the sisters argue late into the night, voices rising over a new store concept, a bold advertising campaign, an unfamiliar business partner. Karla tries to keep the peace, to listen without judgment. She knows that leadership in this family is always conditional, always earned anew. Ambition is a double-edged sword. Karla dreams of seeing Fendi on every runway, in every city, but she fears losing the intimacy that once defined their craft. She does not want to become just another face in the luxury crowd. For every invitation to Paris or New York, there is a pang of homesickness for the small workshop on Via del Plebiscito. Executives from other Italian houses begin to take notice of Karla's style. She is disciplined, precise, always prepared. Her relentless pursuit of perfection inspires loyalty and sometimes envy. Karla senses that she is being measured against men who have run fashion empires for decades, but she refuses to be intimidated or diminished. Over time, Karla's name becomes synonymous with Fendi's rise. She is photographed at gala dinners, quoted in glossy magazines, toasted at industry summits. For outsiders, her life is a tapestry of glamour and influence. Only a few understand the loneliness that can accompany such attention. Karla's insecurities never fully fade. Each collection launch brings a fresh surge of anxiety. She fears disappointing her sisters, her mother, and the generations that may come after. She learns to hide these fears behind impeccable tailoring and a poised smile. But sometimes, in quiet corners backstage, she lets her guard drop. Her confidants see the toll that leadership takes. The pressure intensifies as Fendi explores new markets. In Tokyo, Karla must navigate unfamiliar customs. In New York, she faces aggressive negotiations with department store giants. She studies, rehearses, and adapts, determined never to be caught off guard. Yet the cultural divide often feels vast. She clings to the rituals of her Roman upbringing, grounding herself in the familiar as everything else changes. Karla's vision is not just about selling handbags or fur coats. She sees Fendi as a symbol of feminine power in a world still dominated by men. She revels in the idea that 5 sisters, women, can build an empire that rivals any dynasty in Europe. Still, she is acutely aware that every success story invites scrutiny. Any sign of weakness could be exploited by rivals or the press. The family's unity is tested each time Fendi expands. New boutiques mean more risk, more demands on every sister's time and patience. Tempers sometimes flare, old wounds are reopened. Karla mediates, negotiates, and when necessary, puts her own desires aside for the sake of consensus. She does not always win these battles, but she never stops fighting for the brand. As Fendi's star rises, Karla is forced to make compromises. She must decide what to protect, what to let go, and what to reinvent. With every choice, she feels the gaze of her family, her team, and the world. She makes mistakes, some small, some costly, but she learns quickly, adapting strategy in real time. For Karla, mistakes are lessons, not failures. By the late 80s, Karla stands at the peak of her influence. She has guided Fendi through a labyrinth of cultural shifts, economic crises, and exploding demand. She is celebrated at home and abroad, but the price of that celebration is isolation. Few people understand the balance she must maintain between innovation and tradition. At times, Karla contemplates stepping back. The idea of returning to anonymity, of leaving the spotlight, tempts her. Yet she knows she cannot abandon the brand or the sisters who depend on her. The external world may see only the silhouette of a leader. Inside, Karla remains the girl from the Roman workshop, dreaming of new horizons while longing for old certainties. Under her public poise, cracks begin to show. Karla worries that one wrong move could topple everything. She senses new threats on the horizon, rivalries, changing tastes, the first whispers of corporate takeovers. The empire she helped build is now too big, too coveted to be left in peace. But for Karla Fendi, leadership was never a prize. It was a burden carried out of love for her family, her heritage, and the possibility of something eternal. She stands at the crossroads of ambition and fear, her choices shaping not just a company, but a legacy. And as Fendi's fortunes soar, Karl knows the hardest decisions are still to come. In luxury, as in family, the higher you climb, the harder it is to look down. Chapter 6: Cracks in the Dynasty. Success changes everything, even family. By the start of the 1980s, Fendi is no longer a humble Roman workshop. It is a global symbol of wealth, creativity, and prestige. The five Fendi sisters, once united by the discipline of their mother, Adele, now find themselves staring across an ever-widening table. Each sister brings something vital to the brand. Paola, the eldest, values tradition above all. Anna's touch is instinctive, stylish, but practical. Franca is diplomatic, often smoothing tensions. Carla, the strategist, has become a public face of Fendi's ambition. Alda is creative, quiet, sometimes overlooked, but never absent. Their talents built the empire. Their differences threaten to splinter it. At first, their disagreements are subtle. Meetings run longer, voices grow sharper, small slights accumulate. Some sisters want to protect the core business, leather, fur, the Roman roots. Others see opportunity everywhere, ready-to-wear, fragrances, licensing deals. Fendi's expansion is relentless. New stores open in New York, Paris, Tokyo. The brand's logo flashes in glossy magazines and across the runways. Each success brings new pressures. Maintaining Fendi's identity means navigating not just fashion but finance. The sisters discover that international business has different rules: faster, colder, less forgiving. Small contests become open debates. One day, it's about the color of a new handbag. The next, it's whether to approve a licensing partnership in Asia. Carla pushes for growth, sensing that stasis is fatal. Paola resists, worried that too much change will dilute Fendi's soul. Anna tries to mediate, but her patience thins. Franca finds herself brokering uneasy truces. Alda, quieter, keeps working, her loyalty clear but her opinions less so. As Fendi's stature grows, outsiders take notice. Industry giants and ambitious investors begin circling. The sisters hear whispers of conglomerates from France and luxury groups from Italy with deep pockets and appetites for acquisition. Their world, once dominated by family, now teems with lawyers, bankers, and consultants. The sisters, once inseparable, begin living more separate lives. Their personal ambitions and private grievances grow harder to hide. Each has a family of her own, with children whose futures are now tied to this fortune and its fate. Cousins, Sylvia, Maria Teresa, and others enter the business. The web of interests becomes tangled. Blood, money, legacy. These threads entwine, then fray. Differences over the pace of expansion morph into arguments about creative direction. Should Fendi continue to embrace fur, even as public opinion begins to shift? Should the brand lean into tradition or take the kind of risks that brought them global acclaim? No answer satisfies everyone. The sisters are caught between reverence for the past and hunger for the future. Old family rituals become formalities. Holidays are celebrated at a polite distance or not at all. Emails replace conversations. Meetings are scheduled with assistants, not siblings. Sometimes, Carla wonders if the Fendi name has become too heavy for any one family to bear. By the early 1990s, the cracks have widened. Tensions among the sisters become public knowledge. Rumors of disagreements hit the Italian press. Some claim there are factions within the family, those who want to cash out and those who want to hold on. Others whisper about rifts between mothers and daughters, between old guard and new. The pressure is relentless. Fendi's rivals have grown ruthless. Gucci battles through its own boardroom wars. Prada and Versace expand aggressively. Everyone is aware of LVMH, the Paris-based titan quietly assembling a luxury empire of its own. Their founder, Bernard Arnault, is known for patience and precision. He rarely loses interest in something he wants. As the sisters debate, the numbers keep growing. Revenues soar, but so do expenses. Fendi must constantly innovate. Costs for campaigns, runway shows, and new boutiques rise. Investments that seemed bold one year look reckless the next. The risks, once carried on the sisters' shoulders alone, now seem monumental. For the first time, some sisters openly consider a future without family control. A sale, partial or full, becomes a real option, not just a threat. The idea would have been unthinkable to Adele or Eduardo. Now, the world has changed, and the sisters must choose between legacy and survival. Among the next generation, ambitions clash. Some cousins want roles in the company, others want shares, not responsibilities. The sisters realize that unity, once so natural, must now be negotiated. A brand built on family is suddenly hostage to family politics. Outside forces grow bolder. Investment banks reach out. Offers are floated, evaluated, rejected, reconsidered. The sisters' private disagreements become negotiation tactics. Trust, once implicit, is worn thin by the cycles of suspicion and reassurance. There are moments of warmth, a successful show in Milan, a new product that sells out in days, a grandchild born. But the good news always seems temporary, soon overshadowed by another crisis or decision. The dynasty is holding, but the seams are pulling. In public, Fendi is still a symbol of glamour and unity. Behind the scenes, the sisters' relationships are transactional, sometimes strained. The boardroom and the family dining table have become indistinguishable. Around both, there are winners and losers, alliances and betrayals. Some days, the sisters reminisce about Rome in the 1950s. Back then, arguments ended over a shared meal. Now, every conversation feels like a negotiation. The company's global presence has come at a cost, the blurred boundary between business and blood. As the 1990s progress, the outside world grows less patient. LVMH increases its offers. Other suitors emerge, determined to get a piece of the Fendi magic. The sisters debate every option, every risk, every compromise. No answer feels right. They are trapped between the fear of losing everything and the exhaustion of keeping it together. The story of Fendi's rise was one of unity and shared vision. Now, the dynasty is defined by its fractures. Every decision is shadowed by regret, by longing for when things were simpler, by fear of what comes next. One day, word spreads that the sisters are seriously considering selling a controlling stake. Rivals and insiders alike hold their breath. Decades of struggle, ambition, and sacrifice hang in the balance. The world waits for the sisters' next move. But within the family, an even deeper question lingers. Not what Fendi will become, but who they will be when the business that defined them is no longer truly theirs. Chapter 7: The Sale, A Family Divided. 1999, the year that would change everything for the Fendi family. The negotiations have dragged on for months. Each meeting leaves the sisters more exhausted, more uncertain. The offices in Rome feel colder than ever. Every corner whispers with rumors, contracts, offers, betrayals. In private, some sisters argue for holding out. They believe Fendi can remain independent, even as the world of luxury brands tilts toward conglomerates. Others see the sale as inevitable. They fear that resisting will only make things worse. LVMH and Prada are relentless. Their representatives arrive with briefcases and quiet confidence, promising growth, security, and global reach. Behind closed doors, voices rise. Daughters clash with mothers, sisters with sisters. For the first time, old alliances shift. Arguments are no longer about handbags or design. Now, they cut deeper. A few of the sisters, tired of constant negotiations, grow quiet. They watch as the family's internal divisions widen. The days of unity are gone. Sometimes silence at the dinner table says more than words, but the pressure is mounting from every side. The world is moving faster. Rivals are circling. If Fendi doesn't adapt, it could be swallowed whole or simply fade away. On the day of the final vote, the mood is somber. Each sister knows what is at stake. This is not just about money or business. It is about identity, about pride, about letting go. The vote itself is quiet, almost ceremonial. There are no outbursts, only the sound of pens scratching on paper. When the decision is made, there is no celebration. The family has agreed to sell 51% of Fendi to LVMH and Prada. Within hours, news sweeps through the luxury world. Journalists call it the end of an era. For outsiders, it is just another corporate acquisition. For the sisters, it feels like a defeat or worse, a betrayal. Some break down in tears, unable to imagine a Fendi not ruled by a Fendi. Others retreat into silence, weighed down by doubt. The phone rings endlessly, friends and rivals reaching out with congratulations or condolences. The sisters avoid each other's eyes. That evening, one sister lingers in the empty boutique, running her hand along a glass display case. She remembers the smell of leather from her childhood, the laughter in the workrooms, her mother's quiet pride. All of that feels very far away now. Throughout Rome, headlines blare the same message. Fendi has fallen to foreign hands, but for the family, the real story is quieter and more painful. Some blame each other for the sale. Old wounds surface. Every decision, every slight is dragged back into the light. Tensions flare between generations. The sisters, children, some eager, others resentful, now realize their future in the family business is uncertain. The new owners arrive. LVMH and Prada bring new strategies and stricter controls. The atmosphere changes overnight. Suddenly, every move must be approved. Every expense, every product is scrutinized. A few longtime employees quietly pack up their desks and slip out, unable to accept the new order. The Fendi sisters try to keep up appearances, showing unity to the public. But inside, everything is fragile. Each boardroom meeting feels like walking across thin ice. Even the most mundane decisions are now fraught with tension. The sisters must answer to people who do not share their family traditions or their memories. Each day, their influence slips a little further. Their private frustrations are whispered among trusted friends, never spoken aloud in the corridors of power. Rome itself seems to mourn. The city had watched the Fendi family for decades, 5 women, defiant and brilliant, building something uniquely Italian. Now, it sees them as the last casualties in a global takeover. The press speculates about future conflicts, about whether the sisters will fight to regain control or walk away for good. Some say the real drama is only beginning. But behind all the noise, grief lingers. The sisters have lost more than control. They have lost a part of themselves, a story that can never be retold in the language of contracts and shares. Within the family, the aftershocks play out in small, private ways. An invitation goes unanswered. A family photo disappears from the office wall. The women who once made every decision together now barely speak outside of meetings. There are rumors of lawsuits, of efforts to claw back authority. Some sisters retreat from public life. Others cling more tightly to their titles, determined to prove that the Fendi spirit can survive, even as ownership slips through their fingers. The sale to LVMH and Prada does not bring closure. It only sharpens the questions. Who are they when they are no longer the rulers of their own legacy? What does Fendi mean if it is no longer theirs to shape? As summer turns to autumn, the sisters gather for a family event. The mood is strained. Smiles are practiced for photographers, but the old warmth is gone. Each woman carries her own regrets, her own secret version of how it all could have been different. Outside, a group of tourists stops to admire the Fendi flagship store. They snap photos, unaware of the private drama unfolding behind the golden doors. The world sees a brand that has survived, but inside the family, survival feels hollow. The Fendi sisters end the night much as they began it, divided, uncertain, holding tight to memories even as the future rushes in. The contracts are signed. The boardrooms are filled with new faces. But the story of Fendi as a family remains unfinished, its next chapter forced open by a single, irrevocable decision. And as the city of Rome sleeps, the sisters confront a truth that no business deal can erase. Sometimes, the price of building an empire is losing it. Chapter 8: Silvia Venturini Fendi, heir to a complicated legacy. Silvia Venturini Fendi was not born into an ordinary family. She grew up in a world where handbags were more than objects. They were evidence of taste, power, and identity. Even as a child, she saw how each new collection could set off a storm of family whispers or trigger applause from Rome's most discerning eyes. But when the era of the five Fendi sisters faded into boardroom battles, Silvia found herself standing at a crossroads no guidebook could map. Her mother, Anna, was one of the legendary sisters. Silvia had inherited more than a name. She inherited expectations. Now, as the LVMH era dawned and outsiders claimed the keys to the business, she had to decide, what does it mean to be a Fendi in a world that is no longer hers to rule? She entered the business young, not out of obligation, but out of love. Leather, fur, and sketches were as familiar to her as lullabies. Her earliest memories mixed the rich scent of leather with the nervous energy backstage at runway shows. Over time, she learned to speak the language of artisans and executives. But the world outside was changing. The Fendi sisters operated by instinct and shared memory. Silvia's new colleagues spoke in PowerPoint slides and profit forecasts. There were new rules for everything: creative meetings, budgets, even the right kind of handshake for Parisian executives. Legacy was measured in quarterly earnings, not in stories told after midnight. For Silvia, the challenge was double-edged. She wanted to honor the spirit of the Fendi women who had built something from nothing, but she also wanted to survive and maybe even thrive in this new, colder climate. As creative director for accessories, later for menswear, she walked a tightrope. Too much nostalgia, and she risked irrelevance. Too much change, and the critics would accuse her of betraying her roots. There were days when she felt the weight of generations in every decision. Should a handbag be playful or severe? Could a classic shape carry a modern twist without feeling false? Each choice was scrutinized not just by LVMH executives, but by extended family, loyal clients, and the ever-watchful Italian press. The pressure wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. Silvia knew that every success or failure would be measured against the myth of the five sisters. The world would always wonder, was she merely a caretaker, or could she reinvent Fendi without destroying what made it special? She worked relentlessly, often far from the spotlight. Her approach was quieter than Karl Lagerfeld's theatrical flair, but no less determined. Silvia revived the Baguette bag, a piece launched in the late 1990s but threatened by changing trends. She brought it back to the runway, reimagined, playful, and unmistakably Roman in spirit. The gamble paid off. The Baguette's resurgence sparked new demand, and for a brief moment, it felt like the Fendi magic might outlast even the empire's sail. But every triumph came with a reminder of what had been lost. The company culture was changing. Where once Silvia might have sought counsel from her aunts in the studio, she now fielded calls from Paris. Corporate strategy replaced kitchen table debates. Decisions came down from above, sometimes with little room for family sentiment or tradition. Still, Silvia persisted. She built bridges between the old and the new, even as the ground shifted beneath her. She championed Italian artisans, insisted on keeping production in Rome, and fought to preserve the idiosyncratic sense of humor that had always defined Fendi's style. For her, the brand's wit was not just a flourish, it was a lifeline to her family's true identity. Yet there were moments of doubt. Some critics wondered if Sylvia was too cautious, too respectful of the past. Others accused her of leaning too far into nostalgia, of relying on archival reissues instead of genuine innovation. Every collection was dissected for hidden messages, clues about her loyalties, her ambitions, her ability to stand apart from the shadow of her famous relatives. Behind the scenes, the pressure sometimes boiled over. At meetings in Rome and Paris, Sylvia had to negotiate not just with corporate managers, but often with her own sense of duty. Was it enough to keep the name alive, or did she owe her ancestors something more daring? Even as her public role grew, Sylvia guarded her privacy. She rarely spoke about family arguments, the pain of watching her aunts retreat from leadership, or the loneliness of carrying a legacy that felt more fragile with each passing year. Instead, she spoke about craft, about the textures of leather and the importance of play. Her interviews revealed glimpses, a wry joke, a memory from childhood, a reference to the chaos of family dinners, but she never lingered on loss. The world outside saw a new Fendi, bigger, richer, and more global than ever before. But inside the Roman ateliers, Sylvia waged her own quiet battle to keep the essence alive. She knew that the double F was more than a logo. It was a family crest in exile. It stood for everything that couldn't be bought or sold: creativity, resilience, and a dash of irreverence that no spreadsheet could explain. Through it all, Sylvia drew strength from small victories: a line of handbags that sold out in days, a runway show where models grinned instead of scowling, an artisan's pride in a finished seam. These moments reminded her that Fendi was still, in some ways, a living thing, capable of surprise, of renewal, of joy. Yet with every passing year, the world she inherited grew more distant. The boardroom tables were now crowded with unfamiliar faces. Fendi's future was planned in Paris, not Rome. Sometimes, she wondered if her role was to build bridges or simply to stand guard over a fading memory. When Karl Lagerfeld died, it felt like the end of an era. Sylvia mourned not only a mentor, but a partner in reinvention. She kept working, channeling grief into new collections, determined that the Fendi name would not become just another line in a luxury conglomerate's portfolio. The spotlight shifted, as it always does. New creative directors arrived, trends changed overnight, but Sylvia remained stubborn and watchful. She understood that reinvention was not a single act, but a lifetime of choices. The burden of heritage was heavy, but she wore it lightly, never letting the world see just how much she worried or how fiercely she hoped. Outside, tourists still crowded the flagship store. They posed with shopping bags, oblivious to the quiet defiance of the woman overseeing it all. Inside, Sylvia walked the shop floor, fingers tracing the stitches on a new design, offering a word of encouragement here, a silent nod there. For now, at least, the Fendi spirit still pulsed within these walls. The family's empire was gone, but its DNA refused to vanish. And Sylvia Venturini Fendi, alone among the heirs, seemed both haunted by the past and restless for the future. After all, if survival is not enough, what comes next for a dynasty with nothing left to lose? Chapter 9: After the Empire, Life Beyond the Brand. For decades, the Fendi name meant more than luxury. It meant family. After LVMH's takeover, the empire the five sisters had built was no longer theirs. But the truth is, legacies rarely end with a signature on a contract. They unravel slowly, painfully, in the silences between those left behind. In the quiet years that followed, Rome's cobbled streets seemed unchanged. Yet for Paola, Anna, Franca, Carla, and Alda, everything was different. Their daily routines no longer revolved around atelier deadlines or press previews. The meetings, the fights, the triumphs, they all belonged to another era. With their influence waning, each sister faced the future in her own way. Some retreated from public view, finding solace in family life or private passions. Others tried to stay connected to the world of fashion, appearing at galas or offering advice when asked. Their roles, once so clearly defined, blurred in the New World Order. For Carla, often seen as the strategist, the loss of control cut deepest. She had negotiated with the most powerful people in fashion. Now, boardroom battles were won and lost without her. She watched from the sidelines as the machine she once fueled moved forward, indifferent to her absence. Anna, with her love of tradition, clung to family rituals. She hosted quieter gatherings, Sunday lunches, birthdays, with an insistence that bordered on defiance. These moments, seemingly small, became acts of preservation. In the warmth of her apartment, stories were retold, and laughter softened old wounds. The Fendi spirit, she believed, could not be bought or sold. Paula, the eldest, withdrew into herself. She spent hours in her garden, coaxing life from the soil, tending to roses as if they were fragile memories. The world remembered her as a visionary, but now she preferred silence to spectacle. In solitude, she found a peace that the fashion runways had never provided. Franca, always the peacemaker, tried to bridge distances between siblings and generations. She orchestrated reunions, wrote long letters, and championed the idea that family must adapt or disappear. Yet, even she could not ignore the widening gaps. The younger generation grew up in a different world, less tethered to the demands and dreams that had shaped their mothers' lives. Older, the youngest, embraced change more easily. She explored new ventures, some in fashion, some far from it. For her, the end of the family business meant freedom. It was a chance to define herself outside the shadow of 5 famous sisters. Still, success came with its own bittersweet flavor. The Fendi name opened doors, but it also carried expectations, some heavier than any handbag. As the years passed, the sisters' relationships evolved. Old alliances shifted, childhood rivalries faded or flared, depending on the day. Birthdays brought them back together, funerals reminded them of all they had lost. With each passing season, the empire felt both impossibly distant and painfully close. Money, always a quiet presence in their lives, took on new meaning. After the sale, the sisters were wealthy beyond measure, but prosperity could not buy what they missed most: the thrill of creation, the urgency of shared purpose, the sense of belonging to something greater than themselves. Occasionally, their paths crossed in public. Photographers captured them side by side at events where the Fendi name was invoked like a prayer. Smiles were exchanged, sometimes genuine, sometimes brittle. The world saw legends united. Only they knew the cost of keeping up appearances. The LVMH era brought global reach and commercial triumph. Yet, the Fendi sisters experienced their legacy as something fragile. Their children entered the business, some with ambition, others with reluctance. Family gatherings felt less like board meetings, more like negotiations for peace. As the family's operational role receded, new questions emerged. How would history remember them? Would their innovations be credited, or would they be footnotes in a corporate report? These doubts lingered, quietly haunting the sisters more than any financial loss. Time proved merciless. For a generation that had fought to modernize Italian fashion, the pace of change now felt dizzying. Social media transformed luxury. Influencers, unknown to the sisters, projected the brand into new markets. The world of fur, once central to their identity, became controversial. The sisters watched as Fendi's creative direction shifted, sometimes in ways they barely recognized. In moments of nostalgia, some returned to old sketches and photo albums. They remembered fittings that stretched into the night, arguments over colors that only resolved at dawn. Their struggles had been epic, their victories hard-won, but the city they loved moved on, as unforgiving as ever. Fendi storefronts shone in cities they had never visited. Their surname had become a global currency. Yet loss did not erase pride. In interviews, the sisters spoke of achievements, not regrets. They celebrated the artisans who had stayed with the house for decades. They pointed to innovations that changed how women dressed. Rome's museums began to display Fendi creations as artifacts of cultural history. For most of the sisters, later life offered a rare gift: perspective. Once every detail felt urgent. Now distance softened disappointment. They could see the full sweep of their story, from a modest workshop to worldwide fame, from unity to fracture, and from family ambition to corporate legend. But the question lingered. Had they lost the soul of what they created? Or had they ensured its survival, even in a new form? The answer depended on the day, the mood, the memory summoned by a familiar smell of leather or a sighting of the double F on a stranger's purse. In quieter moments, some sisters found comfort in the ordinary: long walks through Roman gardens, letters from grandchildren, a silk scarf knotted in just the right way. These rituals tethered them to the women they had been and to the city that still whispered their names. The world rarely notices when an era truly ends. There is no ceremony, no official goodbye. The Fendi sisters faded from headlines, but their influence flickered in unexpected places. Their innovations survived in the hands of new designers. Their sense of possibility lived on in the next generation's ambitions. The family dinners, once battlegrounds, settled into something gentler. Competition gave way to storytelling. The fights that once defined them became cautionary tales or inside jokes. In the shadow of global luxury, the sisters reclaimed something simpler. Each became the keeper of memory, determined that her version of Fendi would not be forgotten. For outsiders, it was hard to imagine the quiet that followed such a storm. When the empire was no longer theirs, what remained? In the end, perhaps only this: 5 sisters, each with her own answer, each learning that legacy is not a crown one wears, but a question one lives with. Somewhere in Rome, a bell tolls. The city keeps moving. A new generation of tourists lines up outside the boutique, oblivious to the ghosts that linger upstairs. The story is not over, but now it belongs to someone else. Chapter 10: Legacy and the Price of Luxury. On a busy street in Rome, the golden Fendi letters shine above the entrance. Inside, the boutique is a world apart: polished marble, mirrors, and the quiet hum of luxury. Shoppers drift past displays, fingers tracing the curve of a peekaboo bag or the shimmer of a fur-trimmed coat. Many do not know the story behind the name. Few, if any, remember it once belonged to 5 sisters who rewrote the rules of Italian fashion. Fendi is now part of a global empire. LVMH, the world's largest luxury conglomerate, owns the brand. Boardrooms have replaced the family kitchen. Spreadsheets and strategic forecasts matter more than whispered arguments or late-night sketches over espresso. Some see this as inevitable. Luxury today is a business of scale. To survive, even the most storied houses must compete globally. LVMH brings power, resources, and the promise of immortality. Products reach new continents. Brand value climbs. The Fendi logo becomes a symbol recognized in faraway cities beyond the sisters' wildest dreams. For others, something essential was lost. Beneath the surface, there are questions no press release can answer. What is the price of survival in a world where heritage is currency and tradition is leveraged for profit? The Fendi sisters had defined the brand with personality, sometimes clashing, always passionate, invariably Italian. Their vision came from lived experience: the sound of footsteps on Roman cobblestones, the feeling of fur in their hands, the memory of their mother's laughter. Now design is steered by committees and international creative directors. The family's voice is softer, their presence more spectral than real. Silvia Venturini Fendi, the granddaughter of Adele, is still there, guiding accessories and menswear. Her influence bridges past and present, but she is not the sole author of the brand's story. Creative direction, once passed from sister to sister, now rotates between outsiders with global profiles. The seasons change. New collections reinterpret the Fendi heritage for a digital age. On social media, models parade under Roman arches. Global celebrities become ambassadors. The sense of intimacy, the feeling that every creation comes from a family's heart, grows distant. But Fendi's legacy is not so easily erased. The double F, invented as a playful mark by Karl Lagerfeld, still stands for more than just fun fur. It calls back to a time when risk, ambition, and rivalry fueled relentless reinvention. Even as ownership changed hands, the DNA of the house persisted. Boldness, elegance, a refusal to settle for ordinary. Fendi does not stand alone in this transition. Across Italy, the old family houses face the same dilemma. Should they remain small and independent, risking obscurity, or join a global group trading control for permanence? There is no simple answer. The Fendi sisters made their choice, just as others made theirs. For every critic mourning what was lost, there is a fan celebrating what remains. In Rome, stories still circulate about the Fendi sisters. Legends grow in the telling. Some say the sisters could finish each other's sentences or tear each other apart with a glance. Others whisper about secret meetings in shadowy offices, arguments over contracts, and the silent heartbreak that followed the sale. But the truth, as always, is more complicated. The sisters lived through everything: the thrill of invention, the agony of compromise, the slow fading of their era. Luxury, by its nature, resists change, yet it is also about reinvention. Each generation discovers its own version of beauty, its own definition of success. Fendi's story is a case study in this paradox. The sisters invented a brand, but also a way of being, fearless, curious, unapologetically themselves. Their choices made Fendi what it is, even as those choices led to their eventual eclipse. In the boardrooms of Paris and Milan, executives quote numbers and speak in the language of global markets. In quieter corners, designers flip through old sketches for inspiration. The past is not erased. It is repackaged, reframed, sometimes misunderstood. Yet inside every Fendi bag, there lingers a sense of the original touch, an echo of the hands that shaped it, a trace of long-settled arguments over color, texture, or the cut of a hem. For today's shoppers, Fendi is an emblem of aspiration. For the family, it is a memory, sometimes proud, sometimes bittersweet. The sisters' story is stitched into every seam, even if few think to look for it. No plaque on the Via dei Condotti tells the whole tale. No marketing slogan can capture the weight of 5 lives bound together by ambition and rivalry, love and resentment, triumph and regret. This is the price of luxury, not just in euros or dollars, but in the currency of memory. A family business transformed into a global icon. 5 sisters, once inseparable, now divided by choices made and paths chosen. Their names rarely appear in the headlines now. Their legacy, however, refuses to vanish. In every collection, every new campaign, there is an echo, sometimes faint, sometimes unmistakable. The world will keep buying, and Fendi will keep evolving. What began as a single Roman shop has become a symbol, both of possibility and of what it costs to hold on to a dream. Some pay in money, others in memory. In today's luxury landscape, the Fendi sisters stand as both inspiration and warning. On some mornings, when the light falls just right through a Roman window, the past seems very close. There in the hush before the boutique opens, you can almost hear it. The laughter, the arguments, the relentless drive to make something beautiful and lasting. Luxury demands more than skill or taste. It demands a willingness to let go, to adapt, and sometimes to lose what once seemed impossible to surrender. Outside, the crowds keep coming. The future waits just beyond the glass. The boutique doors open, and the day begins again. Fendi lives on, its past and present entwined, forever marked by 5 determined women who dared to build an empire. Not every legacy is chosen. Some are survived. In the quiet between sales, in the pause before the next reinvention, the real inheritance of the Fendi sisters lingers, restless, unresolved, and impossible to ignore.